Okay, this is going to be a super important lesson because this is where we're going to move the ball, and we're going to create a function in order to handle that and then create the actions of the function. So we've actually re-enabled the request animation frame. So it's calling back to update, and it will continuously loop that update function and run all of the code contained within update. And that means that if we've got the function ball, move ball, and being invoked within update, we're going to be invoking that function as well every time the animation is running. And the animation is going to continuously loop through while the game is in play. So the first thing that we need to do is set up an object, and this will be the position of the ball. So we're going to take in two parameters in here. We're going to need to get the current ball X position. So using the ball object, this is the ball that we created earlier, and getting its offset position. So use offset left for the horizontal, and then ball and offset top for the vertical position. So this will give us our X and Y of where the ball currently is. And so now we need to make our calculations and our conditions to update the ball direction. And so this is going to actually get fairly complex because we want to make sure that we're able to get and apply the different ball directions. And I'm going to set that within the player object so that in case we want to increase the speed or whatever we want to do, we can update the current ball direction. And I'm going to set this as an array. So we're going to have a couple values in there. So one is going to be the vertical movement, and the other is the horizontal movement of the ball. So within an array, and then we can update these as needed. So we've got 2, and the current speed is going to be 5. We can update this and adjust this. And again, making it more dynamic is going to make the gameplay even more flexible. So let's also add in our style updates. So taking ball style, and we're going to update the top position of it. And this is now going to be equal to whatever the position ball value is, and plus pix, of course. And this is position ball Y, because this is the horizontal. And then we're going to do one more for the vertical. So this is going to be style left and update using the ball X position. So right now, it's not going to do a whole lot. Ball is going to stay still. It's not going to move because we're not updating any of the values of ball. But we do have the directions, and we can launch the ball movement now. So let's take a look at what we can do and how we can move this ball. So we want it to be able to move the ball, but we also want it to bounce whenever it hits whenever it hits one of the sides, that we want it to bounce off of the sides. So change direction. So that's one of the things. And also when it hits the top, we want to change direction and come down. And for now, we're going to do when it hits the bottom, we want to change it to go up. And we'll adjust that later on. So basically, we want this ball to be able to bounce around. And when it hits the sides, it just simply changes direction. So that's all we want it to do. So let's add that in as well, where we've got this player ball direction. And for now, we can take ball X or ball Y. We have to do it for both. Player, ball direction, and whatever the value that's contained in here. So this is essentially going to be the speed that the ball is going to be moving. And this is going to be 0. So it actually doesn't matter which one you use, 0, 1. So 0 is going to be for the X, for the horizontal, Y is going to be for the vertical. So let's see what happens. So now when I hit start game, there goes our ball, fell off the edge. And that's not something we want, so adding in a condition to check to see if our position ball Y is greater than, and checking to see the container dimension height. So we've got that container dimension that we're going to use again, and the value that we're using is height. So if it's greater than this, and the reason I'm bracketing around it is because I actually want to subtract 20 off of that. So that makes sure that we account for the ball's size as well. So that gives us a little bit of a buffer, and it'll make it look like more like it's bouncing right off the edge. And you might have to tweak and adjust this, and of course you can do that as needed. So we're checking to see if it's greater than that. And the other one that we needed to check to see is to check to see if Y is less than 0. So position ball Y is less than 0. And if it is, then all we want to do is we want to reverse the ball direction. So no matter which one we're doing, if we multiply any number by -1, that means that we're flipping it from a negative to a positive. So instead of being +5, it'll turn to -5. So see how this works. And actually that should be flipping array number 1. So we see that we had that bounce there. So that was really quick, but we do need to add that in as well for the X position. So checking ball X. And in this case, we're doing the same thing, but we're checking to see, making sure that the width -10 and X. And in this case, we're flipping that value, the array first value. So see what happens. So now we've got our ball is bouncing around the page. So that's exactly what we want. So go ahead and add the bouncy ball into your project. And that's a lot of fun, especially when it's a tennis ball, of course. And still to come is the important stuff like collision detection, and also making sure that whenever the paddle is hitting the ball that it's bouncing off. So that's another thing that we're going to be checking to see. And if that collision occurs, then we're going to change direction on the ball. So quite a few things still to come, and of course, some really important stuff to the gameplay.